My name is Olivia. I am 27 years old and I work as a data scientist in Seattle. This story begins on an incredibly quiet and cold night in my apartment. Outside, the heavy Seattle rain was pouring down, raindrops hitting my window pane like someone trying to break in. My room was pitch black, illuminated only by the harsh blue light of my laptop reflecting on my face. A video was playing on my screen. Over 6 million people on the internet had watched it so far, and the view count was climbing by the second. In the video, my older sister Madison was crying. She was sitting in what looked like a hospital bed. A beautiful silk scarf was wrapped around her head, supposedly to hide the hair she had lost. She had subtle dark makeup under her eyes to make herself look sickly and frail. She was sharing her emotional battle with bone cancer with the world. Looking directly into the camera, she talked about how every day was a new war, how the pain kept her awake all night, and how she was only surviving on the love of her family and well-wishers. Thousands of comments flooded the video. People were calling her an inspiration, a fierce warrior, the bravest angel on earth. And they were frantically pouring money into the crowdfunding campaign set up for her treatment. But not a single one of those 6 million people knew that the entire video, the scarf, the pain, the illness, was one massive, sickeningly white lie. In my hand, I held a small black flash drive. It wasn't just a piece of plastic and metal. That drive was the culmination of my months of hard work, my ruined sleepless nights, my stolen dreams, and the sole digital weapon capable of shattering my sister's web of lies. That tiny drive held the entire truth, ready to send shockwaves across the internet within the next 24 hours. Today was the day I was going to take back everything that had been so ruthlessly stolen from me. But to understand how I got to that night, you have to turn the pages of my past way back. If you truly want to feel my story, you have to step into my old childhood home in Chicago. We were a very ordinary middle-class family. My parents were simple, emotional people, but their entire world revolved around a single axis: my older sister, Madison. Madison is 4 years older than me. From childhood, she was the sun of our household, and the rest of us were just minor planets revolving around her. Madison wasn't a bad person, but she had a dangerous addiction to being the center of attention, one that knew no bounds. If, by some mistake, I ever got a little spotlight, or a relative praised me, Madison would suddenly fall dreadfully ill or face some massive life crisis. I still remember my 10th birthday. My parents had thrown a small surprise party for me. All my school friends were there. I was just about to cut the cake, and everyone was singing for me. Suddenly, Madison came running down the stairs and collapsed onto the floor, screaming. She claimed her chest was hurting terribly and she couldn't breathe. The whole party ground to a halt. My parents panicked, the guests were sent home, and we all rushed to the hospital in an ambulance. The most special day of my life ended in a cold, terrifying hospital waiting room. I just sat in the corner in my party dress, crying. The doctors later told us nothing was wrong with her. It was just a staged panic attack. But instead of scolding her, my parents showered her with even more affection. Amidst this endless cycle of drama, I became the child who never needed anything. I learned at a very young age that if I wanted to live in peace in that house and keep my sanity intact, I had to make myself completely invisible. I distanced myself from people and lost myself in the world of books, math, and computers. Code and data became my safest refuge. I realized that humans could lie and deceive whenever it suited them, but data never lies. Numbers don't change their shape based on emotions. I put myself through college entirely on my own, without taking a single dime from my parents. I worked 2 part-time jobs, pulled all-nighters studying, and eventually became a data scientist. My job was to identify hidden patterns within massive, complex datasets, find anomalies, and catch the mistakes people meticulously tried to hide. My rule in life was straightforward and clear. Don't be a burden to anyone, pave your own way, and stay a million miles away from my family's toxic drama. This rule worked perfectly for years. I only saw them on holidays and was happy in my own quiet, separate world. But then, a moment came that changed everything forever. At 25, after clearing several grueling rounds of interviews, I landed my dream job at a highly prestigious tech company in Silicon Valley. This was the job I had sacrificed my sleep, my hobbies, my youth, and my absolute everything for. This job meant a stellar salary, a new life in California, and above all, an identity of my own that no one could snatch away. When I got the acceptance email, I sat on the stairs of my tiny apartment and cried for hours. I printed out the offer letter and pinned it to my fridge. I stared at it like it was a miracle. It was the biggest and only real triumph of my life. The following Sunday, when I went over to my parents' house for dinner, I broke the good news to them in a very calm voice. I told them I was moving to Silicon Valley. I had landed a huge role, and my life was about to change. For a brief moment, the room filled with joy. My dad hugged me tight, and my mom had genuine tears of pride in her eyes. They told me how proud they were. But sitting at the exact opposite end of the dining table, Madison was dead silent. Her face was completely expressionless. Her eyes were fixed on the three of us. She watched that joy and attention like a starving person watching someone else's plate of food being snatched away. I saw a strange glint in her eyes at that moment, but I brushed it off. And exactly 1 week later, Madison called an emergency family meeting. It was a dreadful Sunday evening. Madison stood before us in the living room. Her eyes were bone dry, her chin was tilted up, and in a remarkably calm, measured, and dramatic voice, she announced that she had been diagnosed with an incredibly rare form of bone cancer. She said her illness was in its final stage and the doctors had given her a year or two to live, at most. She delivered this with such bravery and poise that the moment the words left her mouth, a deathly silence fell over the room. My mom let out a blood-curdling scream, ran to hug Madison, and sobbed uncontrollably. My dad froze like a stone statue, the color completely draining from his face. I felt a profound, horrifying wave of sadness too, but as a data scientist, a strange suspicion began creeping into a dark corner of my mind. She had stated the name of her illness, the doctor's names, the complex treatment procedures, and the entire roadmap with such precision, like a seasoned actor delivering a monologue they had memorized for months. She didn't stumble over a single complex medical term. She had answers ready for all our frantic questions before we could even ask them. There were absolutely no holes, no hesitation in her story. But I immediately strangled those suspicious thoughts. I told myself, "Olivia, what a monster you are. Who interrogates their own dying sister?" From the very next day, the entire atmosphere of my house morphed into a hospital ward. My mom took a leave of absence from her job and drafted a full-blown care routine for Madison. Without asking me, decisions about my life were made, and my name was penciled into that schedule. Olivia will drive her to the hospital. Olivia will get her tests done. Olivia will cook her special meals. I truly gave it my all. I dropped everything to help her. One day, I told Madison that I wanted to come into the doctor's cabin with her so we could understand what her reports were saying and I could support her better. The second she heard this, tears welled up in her eyes, and in a fragile, trembling voice she said, "Olivia, please, I have nothing left in my life. I just need one thing to be solely mine, my privacy. I don't want you turning this cancer into one of your data projects. In the U.S., medical privacy laws, known as HIPAA, are incredibly strict. You can't even call a hospital to ask if your sister is a patient there. No doctor can give you any information without the patient's written consent. These laws exist to protect people and their privacy, but for liars, these laws become an impenetrable, bulletproof shield. And then came the day that completely destroyed my world. I was just a month away from moving to Silicon Valley. I had started packing. Suddenly, my parents called me over to their house. They both looked distraught. Their eyes were swollen. My dad said with a heavy heart, "Olivia, Madison's treatment is astronomically expensive. Her insurance isn't fully covering this rare disease. The pills she's taking cost thousands of dollars. To save her life, we've remortgaged the house and drained every penny we saved up to help you." I was stunned, but the money wasn't even the main issue. My mom looked at me, and her words pierced my chest like a dagger. She said, "Olivia, Madison's condition is terrible. She needs you now more than ever. Can't you just give up that job for a few years? You're so smart. You always land on your feet. You'll find another job anytime. But Madison might only have this little time left. Can't you let go of your dream for your dying sister? If you leave, how are we supposed to handle her all alone?" A high-pitched ringing started in my ears. My mind went numb. My sister wasn't just taking my money, she was hijacking my life, my future, my dream, the very spot I had shed blood, sweat, and tears for. I looked my mom in the eye and said, "How could you guys do this? That is the biggest opportunity of my life. I've dedicated my entire life for this." My mom started sobbing hysterically, calling me selfish and cold-hearted. She said I cared more about my career than my sister's life. That day, I had a bitter realization. In my family, right and wrong, hard work, and honesty meant absolutely nothing. The only currency that mattered was who looked the most helpless, who was bleeding the most. With a heavy heart and tear-filled eyes, I called the company in Silicon Valley and turned down my dream job. I lied to them, saying I had a medical emergency in the family. I packed up my dream, that offer letter, into a cardboard box and hid it in a dark corner of my house so I wouldn't have to cry looking at it every day. The following year went by in an endless, suffocating blur. Madison shaved off all her hair. The funny part was, she buzzed it all off before her treatments had even allegedly begun. She argued that she didn't want the cancer to slowly strip away her hair, so she was cutting it herself to feel empowered. When you see a bald head, your brain believes the illness without a single question. It was a massive psychological game. Madison set up a GoFundMe page under the guise of her massive medical bills. She started posting short vlogs of her cancer journey on TikTok and Instagram. In no time, she went viral. Millions of people started following her, and thousands of dollars in donations poured in from all over the world. She'd say in her videos that today was the hardest day of chemo, how much she threw up, or how incredibly weak she felt. My parents were drowning under the crushing weight of debt, but Madison had become a shining star on the internet. But the first crack in her massive, flawless charade appeared when I caught a tiny yet crucial technical slip-up. It was the last week of October. It was raining heavily. I dropped Madison off at the main entrance of the city's largest hospital, as usual. She walked in, and I parked my car in the visitor's lot, pulling out my laptop to get some work done. Even though I'd lost my permanent job, I was doing freelance data analysis for a few companies to make ends meet. Barely 45 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a text from Madison saying her chemo session wrapped up super early. She was feeling great, and I should come pick her up. It felt incredibly off. I had read extensively about her supposed illness online. How could a chemotherapy session that takes at least 4 to 5 hours, leaving a patient barely able to stand, be over in just 45 minutes? When she got into my car, she didn't look exhausted at all. She was practically glowing. She had an expensive designer scarf wrapped around her bald head and enthusiastically rambled on about which nurse she had, what they talked about, and what juice the hospital gave her. The more minutiae and tiny details she offered, the louder the alarm bells rang in my head. As a data scientist, my literal job was catching lies, and I knew that when someone lies, they overcompensate with unnecessary details to make it sound believable. That night, sitting alone in my room, I decided I was going to scrutinize my sister's every move through the lens of an analyst. I started digging through her social media accounts. I downloaded every picture she posted on her GoFundMe in high resolution. In one photo, she was lying in a hospital bed, eyes closed, with an IV drip taped to her hand. The caption read, "Another rough day." I zoomed in on the picture. Enhancing it, I noticed that the plastic tubing secured to her hand with medical tape had no needle at the end. It wasn't penetrating her skin. It was just an empty tube resting on her skin, hidden beneath the tape. Then, I zoomed in on the hospital patient wristband she was wearing in the same photo. Despite a bit of pixelation, the printed date was legible. It was 3 years old. My mind reeled. It was the exact same wristband they put on her when she faked that stomachache at my high school party. She had kept that old band and was now using it as a prop in her fake cancer narrative. I saved all those photos into a folder. The next day, I began extracting the metadata from Madison's TikTok videos. For those who don't know, metadata is a hidden digital footprint attached to every photo or video. It tells you exactly when, where, at what time, and on what device a file was created. Madison had posted a video claiming she was in a special hospital isolation ward, talking about how gloomy the weather looked outside and how much she missed her family. But when I pulled the hidden location file using specialized software, the GPS coordinates pointed straight to Miami, Florida. I watched the video slowed down, frame by frame. There was a large glass window in the background. The faint reflection on the glass wasn't of a sterile hospital room. It was of a highly exclusive, famous luxury spa in Miami. While my elderly parents were starving themselves and taking out loans to pay her medical bills, while I had thrown away my career to nurse her, my sister was vacationing on a beach in Miami using donation money, filming fake hospital videos. Seeing that, all my grief, all my sisterly love vanished in a heartbeat. It was replaced by a very cold, quiet, and dangerous fire. I decided I wouldn't confront her or my parents with a single direct question. If I spoke up now, she'd just spin another dramatic web. I would only gather irrefutable evidence. For the next 2 months, I tracked her every digital footprint like a ghost. The location data of every photo, her internet IP addresses, the digital fonts on the fake medical bills she showed my parents. I decoded every single piece of it. She had told my parents she was being treated by a Dr. Corwin. I didn't hack into the state medical board's official database. I just checked the public domain. There was no oncologist by that name, or anything remotely similar, registered in the entire state. She was using a basic, free online PDF editor to forge her bills. I even found the software's watermark and digital stamp hidden in the file properties. Her entire cancer was a meticulously planned, cruel, and horrifying digital heist. I saved all my intel, the screenshots, video analyses, IP reports, and medical board search results, onto that black flash drive. My case was now totally bulletproof. No lawyer on earth could refute this evidence. And then came the day I had been waiting for: Thanksgiving. In America, it's a day meant for family and gratitude. We were all gathered at my parents' house. A few close relatives and old family friends were there too. A grand feast was laid out on the dining table. The atmosphere was incredibly emotional. Madison fired up a live stream for her followers. She set her phone on a tripod at the corner of the dining table and, with tears streaming down her face, told thousands of people that this might be her last Thanksgiving. Looking straight into the lens, she innocently claimed that while her parents had been her rock through this nightmare, draining their life savings for her, her younger sister Olivia was incredibly selfish and didn't care at all about her terminal illness. My parents and relatives sat there listening, tears in their eyes. That was the moment my patience finally snapped for good. But I didn't yell. I didn't make a scene. I stood up from my chair very calmly, pulled my laptop out of my bag, and walked over to stand right next to Madison. I was now fully in the frame of the live stream. I knew at least 20,000 people were watching us live right then. Without uttering a word, I opened my laptop, plugged in the black flash drive, and connected it to the large living room TV with an HDMI cable. I looked Madison dead in the eye. For a split second, sheer panic flashed across her face. In a calm but ice-cold voice, I said, "Madison, if I'm so selfish, let's show all your fans, your donors, and our family your real truth today." I turned the live stream camera to face the TV screen. I opened my first folder. First, I displayed the Miami spa photo she had posted as a hospital room. Then, using my software, I zoomed into the glass reflection, revealing the luxury resort, and slapped the video's Miami GPS location data right onto the screen. Next, I pulled up the close-up shots of the fake IV drip with no needle and the 3-year-old hospital wristband. I showed the font analysis of her fake medical bills, demonstrating exactly how she used a PDF editor to forge millions of dollars in medical expenses. And finally, I opened the official state medical board report, displaying in bold letters that Dr. Corwin did not exist on the face of the earth. Dead silence fell over the room. The only sound was the hum of the TV screen and the rain pouring outside. The comment section on Madison's phone exploded. The same people praying for her a minute ago were now calling her a fraud, a criminal, a monster. All the color drained from Madison's face. Her body began to tremble violently. She lunged for her phone and tried to cut the live stream, but it was too late. Once something goes live on the internet, it's immortalized forever. People had already screen recorded it. My mom stared at the undeniable proof on the TV screen, and the voice caught in her throat. She collapsed into her chair and buried her face in her hands. My dad's head bowed down in shame, grief, and shock. He was completely speechless. Madison burst into hysterical tears. She screamed that she only did it because she felt like we had all forgotten about her. She claimed that while I was climbing the corporate ladder, she felt intensely lonely, and this illness was the only way she could win back all our love and attention. I looked at her and replied in a devastatingly calm voice, "To get love, you destroyed my life, stole my dreams, put our parents on the street, and played with the emotions and wallets of millions of people who are actually fighting real diseases. That's not love. That's psychopathy. This is your mental illness, not cancer." I shut my laptop, yanked out the cable, grabbed my jacket, and walked out of that house. I never looked back after that night. Because Madison's livestream went viral, the story blew up nationwide the very next day. News channels picked it up. GoFundMe filed criminal wire fraud charges against her. The police and the FBI launched an investigation. Madison was arrested and sentenced to prison. My dad had to sell whatever was left, our childhood home, everything, just to pay the donors back. They went completely bankrupt. My mom called me multiple times. She left voicemails crying, saying I dragged the family's honor through the mud in front of the whole world and that I should have handled it internally. But I didn't feel an ounce of regret. I contacted the HR department of the company in Silicon Valley. I explained the whole situation, referenced the viral video, and luckily, seeing my merit and the extreme circumstances, they reinstated my offer. Today, I live in California. There is no drama in my life anymore. No screaming, no chaos. I've realized that the satisfaction of being proven right never truly satisfies your hunger. The scars I got might never fully heal. But this story isn't just about catching a liar. It's about how some relationships, even blood ties, hollow you out so deeply from the inside that the only way to save yourself is to log out of them forever, without a shred of guilt. I've learned to forgive them, but my forgiveness doesn't mean I will ever open that broken door again. My forgiveness means I built a brand new door for myself, and I am the only one who holds the key. This was my story. The heavy burden carried for 3 years, the agonizing journey of quietly gathering digital evidence, and that one evening when I decided I was never backing down again. If you have someone in your family who only notices you when you're breaking, or who would gladly suffocate you for their own happiness, I hope you build a new door too, and keep the key safely in your pocket. Share this story with the person who selflessly holds your family together through every storm. Let me know in the comments what you would have done if you were sitting at that Thanksgiving dining table. Would you have spoken the truth, or stayed silent for the sake of family honor? Like this video, subscribe to Bookbite Studio, and I'll see you next time with another true story.